They call it the Isle of Man, a tiny speck in the Irish Sea, sitting between England and Ireland, but it doesn't belong to either. On the map, it looks almost invisible, yet it hides secrets unlike anywhere else in the world. It's not a country, not part of the UK, not even fully independent, yet it manages its own laws, taxes, and government. People live here, work here, and speak a language most of the world has never heard of. Yet the island quietly shapes powerful global forces, from money to culture. How can a place so small hold so much mystery? Why does it exist in this gray zone between nations? Almost forgotten, almost invisible, yet quietly protected and surprisingly rich. By the time you understand what this island really is, everything you thought about countries and borders will feel different. From above, the Isle of Man looks small, just 572 square kilometers, but its location gives it an outsized role. It's only 31 kilometers from England, 51 kilometers from Ireland, yet these short distances hide a world of separation. The sea around it acts like a quiet shield, making it isolated but safe, a tiny kingdom tucked between larger neighbors. Its size and position make it easy to miss on a map, yet nearly impossible to ignore once you understand how it governs itself. For centuries, the island has used its geography to stay apart, to survive, and to thrive. Every hill, every cliff, every stretch of coastline tells a story of isolation, protection, and independence that few outsiders can truly grasp. And even with its small population, its influence stretches far beyond the shore, quietly touching the world of money, law, and culture. The Isle of Man is shaped by isolation, mystery, and raw nature. Rugged cliffs rise straight from the sea, green hills roll across the land, sandy beaches hide quiet, secret coves. Long ago, during the Ice Age, the island was connected to Great Britain, but as the seas rose, it became cut off from the mainland. That separation shaped everything: language, culture, laws, even safety. The island feels remote, untouched, as if the world forgot it exists. Every hill, every hidden valley, every coastline is a reminder that this tiny land is separate, yet strangely connected, giving it a freedom few islands can claim. And that isolation has quietly protected the secrets, quirks, and traditions that make the Isle of Man unlike anywhere else. At first glance, the Isle of Man seems tied to the British crown, with King Charles III as its official head, but appearances are deceiving. The king has no real power here. His role is ceremonial, symbolic, a nod to history more than authority. Instead, the island is quietly run by its own elected officials, who make laws, collect taxes, and decide what is best for their people. It's a strange balance, a kingdom with a king who doesn't rule, a government that answers only to its citizens, yet still enjoys the protection of one of the world's largest nations. This unusual setup makes the island both independent and dependent at the same time, creating a puzzle that few understand, but everyone notices when they look closer. The Isle of Man has a flag unlike anything else in the world. 3 legs, bent and spinning, connected to nothing, form a strange, almost eerie design. Historians aren't entirely sure why it was chosen, but many believe it stands for strength, movement, and balance, qualities that mirror the island itself. It's easy to confuse with Sicily's similar flag, yet this one tells a story all its own: survival, identity, and quiet power. Simple but powerful, strange but meaningful, a symbol that refuses to be ordinary, just like the island it represents. The term crown dependency sounds complicated, but it's simpler than it seems. The Isle of Man runs its own affairs, its laws, taxes, and government, without interference from the UK Parliament. Yet for defense and international matters, it still relies on Britain. In other words, it is its own little world, free in most ways, but protected in others. This unusual setup gives the island control over what matters to its people, while staying connected enough to remain safe. It's a strange balance of freedom and reliance, a combination that makes outsiders wonder how such a small place survives, and even thrives, without being a full country. The Isle of Man may be small, but the lives of its people make it feel larger than its size. Around 85,000 people call it home, fewer than the crowd in a major stadium, yet each person is part of a society that manages its own rules and wealth. About 27,000 live in the capital, Douglas, where life hums quietly along the coast. With a population density of roughly 149 people per square kilometer, it's neither crowded nor empty. Every resident, every neighborhood, every hill and street tells the story of how this tiny population keeps a small world running smoothly, while the world outside hardly notices it exists. The Isle of Man is more than laws and numbers. It has a culture all its own. One of the most striking symbols is the Manx language, spoken by only about 1,000 to 2,000 people worldwide. Critically endangered, it sounds familiar yet impossible to understand if you've never heard it. A mix of Celtic and Nordic tones that echo the island's history. Listening to it is like hearing a whisper from the past, a reminder that the island preserves a unique identity despite outside influence. The language is fragile, yet it survives, just as the island has survived centuries of change, invasion, and shifting borders. It's a quiet statement. This is a place that protects its own, even in ways most of the world will never notice. The Isle of Man isn't just quiet and remote, it's quietly powerful. Its tax system is legendary, almost like a hidden key to global money. Companies here pay almost nothing in corporate tax, no inheritance tax, and no capital gains tax. Banks, shipping firms, and even the world's largest online poker sites call the island home, taking advantage of this rare setup. For such a tiny population, the flow of wealth is astonishing, making the island feel like a secret engine powering industries far beyond its shores. But the wealth is complicated. Some of it stays here, some moves around the world, leaving residents with benefits, but also mysteries. It's a place where law, money, and strategy collide, all inside an island most people couldn't even find on a map. On paper, the Isle of Man looks unbelievably rich. Its GDP per person ranks among the wealthiest in the world. But much of this money comes from multinational companies that are based here for tax advantages, not from everyday life for residents. While the numbers shock outsiders, the island's people experience only part of that wealth. This gap between appearance and reality is part of the island's charm and mystery. It's a place that seems bigger, richer, and more influential than it truly is, yet it quietly thrives without boasting, letting the world guess at its secrets. On the Isle of Man, even money tells a story. The island uses its own currency, the Manx pound. It looks like the British pound, but it isn't quite the same. British pounds work here too, yet the Manx pound quietly reminds everyone. This island plays by its own rules. Almost part of the UK, yet not quite. Every coin, every note carries a subtle message. The Isle of Man exists in a space between worlds, close to the familiar, but defined by its own choices. A small detail, perhaps, but one that says everything about how this tiny island survives, thrives, and stays unmistakably itself. No story of the Isle of Man is complete without the TT, the tourist trophy, one of the deadliest motorcycle races in the world. Riders hurtle along public roads at over 200 miles per hour, weaving between buildings, cliffs, and hills, where every turn could be their last. The race has run for more than a century and claimed dozens of lives, yet thrill seekers and spectators flock from all corners of the globe. The TT is more than a race. It's a testament to the island's daring spirit, where danger, skill, and tradition collide. It reveals a side of the Isle of Man that no map can capture, a living, breathing adventure etched into every mile of its winding roads. Beyond the roar of the TT, the Isle of Man is calm, peaceful, and surprisingly safe. Crime is low, mostly minor, non-violent offenses, and many consider it one of the safest places in the British Isles. Life here moves at a steady, gentle pace. Quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and a sense of order give the island a quality larger countries often lack. Some rankings even place it among the world's safest spots, though data is limited. Here, extremes coexist. Breathtaking danger one moment, tranquil life the next. It's a balance that makes the Isle of Man not just fascinating, but quietly, wonderfully livable. The Isle of Man is a place that defies labels. Not the UK, not a full country, yet it runs like its own world, with laws, taxes, and a culture outsiders can barely grasp. Protected yet independent, rich on paper but quietly complex, daring yet peaceful, small yet influential. From rugged cliffs to spinning flags, from its ancient language to the roar of the TT, the island thrives in a space almost undefined. It challenges everything we think we know about borders, power, and identity. In the end, the Isle of Man is more than a dot on the map. It's a living paradox, surviving and flourishing quietly, in plain sight. The Isle of Man keeps its secrets well, leaving more questions than answers. How can such a tiny island hold so much power, history, and mystery while barely appearing on the map? Is it a loophole of law, a model of survival, or simply an accident of history? The truth may never be fully clear, and that is exactly what makes it fascinating. Now imagine this. What would you do if you could live in a place that defies the rules, where almost nothing is what it seems, yet everything has meaning? If the Isle of Man surprised you, just think of the hidden corners of the world still waiting to be discovered. Stay curious, dive deeper, and explore more with Storyground.